Hey guys, so I did a video not too long ago talking about what our plans are moving forward after we lost our pregnancy at 16 and a half weeks and how we plan to grow our family. I will have that video linked down below. If you haven't seen it. If you haven't, this video might not make a ton of sense. But after I posted that video, there have been some kind of frequently asked questions in the comment section of that video. So I thought that I would just kind of take the time now to kind of answer and address some of those comments. So one of the first things that I wanted to mention, there were a couple of comments in my last video, and then there's been a couple comments in my previous videos. And that is around me saying that our pregnancy loss was a miscarriage. So there was one comment, she totally didn't mean any harm, and I feel bad that she feels bad. But there was another comment saying that she was actually offended that I was calling what we had a miscarriage. So I just kind of wanted to kind of clear that up and explain why I referred to what we had as a miscarriage. So as far as I know, any pregnancy loss before 20 weeks is considered by doctors a miscarriage. And so if doctors had known that I was in labor, which they didn't know that, but if they had known, they wouldn't have sent me to the labor and delivery. That was a question that I got asked a lot in my video where I was talking about exactly what happened with our miscarriage. And a lot of people were asking, why wasn't I sent to labor and delivery? Number one, they thought that I had appendicitis, so they didn't know that I was in labor. And then number two, even if they had known, it would have been wonderful if they had known so that I would have known what was happening and I didn't have to deliver him alone in an ambulance, because that was super traumatic. I would have absolutely loved to have Joe there by my side, but I would have delivered him in the emergency room in that case. They wouldn't have sent me to labor and delivery, because at that point they look at it as a miscarriage and not like a stillbirth or anything like that. So sometimes when I'm talking about it, I don't really know the words to say and how to refer to it, but just when I'm having a conversation and I like have a thought that I need to get out, when I'm talking in a conversation with somebody or on a video, instead of me like explaining like exactly what happened, it's kind of just quicker for me to just say the actual medical term of what happened, which is when we had our miscarriage, or I had a miscarriage. I was talking to a friend tonight on Marco Polo, and I can't remember exactly what I was talking about, but I was referring to something that happened after we lost Blue, after we lost our pregnancy. And I was talking to her and I was going to say the words after we lost Blue, but I just in that moment couldn't say those words, because sometimes in the day-to-day and you're just having a conversation with your friend, like those words are sharp and those words are painful. And so I was going to say after we lost Blue, but I at the last minute changed it up and said after we had our miscarriage. For me, just to get through the conversation, it was easier for me emotionally for me to just say after our miscarriage versus physically saying the words after we lost Blue or after I lost my pregnancy. Like that is a lot more painful to say. So sometimes when I'm just in a conversation or I'm talking on YouTube, it's just quicker for me to say the medical term of what happened versus going like breaking down like actually what happened. It's one of those things that I don't know what you call it. I don't even know if there's a proper medical term for what happened to us. I carried our baby to 16 and a half weeks. I delivered him in the back of an ambulance. When I delivered him, he was still in this sack, and this sack was fully intact with the water in it and everything. I personally believe that when he was born, he had a heartbeat, and that he was alive for a few seconds or a few minutes after delivering him. And then, you know, what do you call being alive? He didn't breathe or anything, he was still in his sac, but I believe personally that he had a heartbeat. So would you say that that's more of an infant loss? But I know that the medical term wouldn't have called him an infant. They would have called him a fetus. I don't know. Fetal loss? Is that what I would call it? I don't know. So I don't even know sometimes what to call it. So just saying miscarriage for the sake of like getting out my sentence is what I do. So I am sorry if that is offensive to anyone, but that for me is just how I explain what happened to us. The second question that I have been getting a lot is if we have considered surrogacy. I think that surrogacy is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful thing available to couples that want to go down that road. It isn't necessarily the biological part. It's not necessarily that I want a baby that is me and Joe. It's kind of like the whole experience wrapped in itself. Yes, that's one of like the cool things, but it's not needed at all. And then you can say, well, being pregnant isn't needed at all either. And it's not, which is why I love adoption. But for me, like when it comes to having biological children, it's the whole package of it. So when you take out like that huge main piece of the package, part of the package of not being pregnant, for me, I would rather just go down the adoption road. Like it's just not super important for me personally to have biological children. It's just something that's never spoken to our hearts. If one day it does speak to our hearts, then it would be a different story. I've also been getting a lot of questions like, are we gonna do IVF and things like that? We're gonna go see a fertility doctor. I'm having the procedure done that I mentioned in my last video where they're gonna take a closer look at my uterus and see the shape that it's in and see if there's any red flags for a future pregnancy. And then from there, we're gonna kind of roll into the fertility doctor. Again, IVF doesn't really speak to me. IVF is really, really expensive and there's no guarantee that it can work. It could not work, you could have a miscarriage. And so for me, in my mind, it's like, I know that I'm confusing, but I would love to get pregnant, but if I had to put, let's say $20,000 into something, if I had to put it into IVF or if I had to put it into adoption, I would put it into adoption. Like that's just where my mind is. IVF is expensive and adoption is expensive. But for me, I think that adoption is a more like guaranteed route. It might take a year, 2 years, 3 years, but most likely you're going to end with a baby. Whereas with IVF, it's kind of a gamble, especially with somebody like me that has so many fertility issues. I would love to get pregnant, but if I'm gonna put like $20,000 into something, I love adoption too. So I would just go the adoption route. I wouldn't put all the eggs into my uterus. Put all your eggs in one basket. I wouldn't put all my eggs into one uterus. Did that joke make sense? I don't think that it did. With that being said, we are going to be seeing a fertility doctor. I am going to be monitored very closely. My doctors have given me the green light. They feel like they know what caused the miscarriage. They are pretty darn sure that it was my blood clotting disorder. I am going to talk to them more about, I can't remember exactly what it's called, like the incompatible cervix. I don't know if I'm saying that right. My doctor doesn't think that I have it. She's already brought that up to me, but I am gonna push for answers on that a little bit more and see if maybe we can do some preventative things, like just in case I do. But they think that it was my blood clotting disorder. They think that they know the right medication that I need to be on. And they think that even with my health issues and everything, that there's no reason that we shouldn't get pregnant. Whether it's going to happen or not, I don't know. But as far as like me physically being able to carry a baby, and if my body can handle it with my health issues. They have seen far sicker patients, like far sicker patients being able to successfully get pregnant and carry a pregnancy. I do have health issues, but they're not like life-threatening or anything like that. I'd probably be on more bed rest and things like that, but they are 100% giving us the green light and the thumbs up and are excited to see us potentially get pregnant. I want to try to do it as naturally as possible. So we're gonna kind of play it by ear. I have been looking a lot into like natural supplements for PCOS to help my body naturally regulate its cycles and have normal cycles, because as it is, I only have like 1 to 2 a year. Whereas things like Clomid kind of like mask the issue, and it's kind of like a band-aid fix, which it works. And so I might get on Clomid, but I think for the first like 2 or 3 months, I kind of really want to try to get my body in a healthy place so that it naturally is having a natural cycle, and it's naturally being able to do what it needs to do, and it's naturally able to hold a healthy pregnancy. I'm really trying to eat as healthy as I can, organic, whole foods, exercise, drink tons of water. I'm trying to take natural supplements. Like, I'm just really in a headspace right now of trying to just be a healthy person, and then being able to have a healthy pregnancy as like a bonus on top of that, and kind of as like a beautiful reward for getting my body in a lot healthier shape. And so that's where my mind is at right now. I think that if we're 4 or 5 months into it, and during that whole time, we will be in touch with a fertility doctor. But I think that if we're nearing the end of the 6 months, we might do something like IUI to kind of help us along, or we might end up doing fertility drugs. But where my mind space is right now is I want to try to just do it as naturally as possible, with my body being as healthy as it can be. So we are potentially going to be doing some fertility treatments, but I just don't see us going all the way to IVF, because I think if at that point we're not pregnant, I would really just like to adopt. And then that kind of rolls in to the next question. This is going to be a long video probably. And that is, why don't we do both at the same time, try to get pregnant and go down the adoption route? We might do that to some extent. It takes a few months to get approved for adoption, but the reason why I don't want to do both necessarily like at the same exact time is that, for me at least, I'm sure other couples are totally able to do it, but for me, they're both 2 completely different roads that you're going down, and they are both emotionally exhausting. They are all consuming. I feel like when you're trying to get pregnant, it's like all you can think about. It's all consuming. It is constantly on your mind. It's very emotionally draining. It can be very stressful. And that's both of them. The adoption road, it is wonderful and beautiful, but it's stressful and it's emotionally draining for sure. And same thing with trying to get pregnant. And so kind of like melding those 2 together, I, in my mind, need to separate the 2. Like, I need to go down one path, and then when that path doesn't work, I need to then focus my energy on the other path. The other question was, why just 6 months? Why are we just trying for 6 months? Like, why not kind of do both and, you know, kind of try to get pregnant for longer until one of them happens? And the answer is kind of the same as the last one. I feel like we just need to try for 6 months, and if it doesn't work, I need to just kind of start to walk away from that road, and I need to shut the door on that, because emotionally it's hard for me to leave that door open. And I know that that's probably really hard for a lot of people to understand, but I'm also sure that a lot of people do understand it who've been through it. It's just really, really hard for me emotionally to know that that door is open. If that door is open, I'm always thinking about it. And so the door is going to be open for 6 months. And if it doesn't happen in that 6 months, I need to shut that door, and I need to move on, and I need to just focus on adoption. And mentally, that's just what I need. Okay, I think that that is all of the kind of frequently asked questions from my last few videos. So Yeah, thank you guys so much for your love and prayers and your support. It's definitely a vulnerable thing sharing all of this online. I feel a bit naked in front of a crowd. And so I'm really excited to share this journey with you guys on how we grow our family. But I'm also slightly nervous. Yeah, I will end that here, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye.